Welcome to Reading the Gospels Together for Monday, June the 15th. And today we're reading the second half of Luke chapter 18 and the first half of Luke 19, which together make up a single unit. Now, had I been in charge of when they made the chapter divisions in the Bible 500 years ago, I would have made this section a chapter all on its own, but perhaps it's best that somebody else did it. It's too late now in any case. Today's section begins with Jesus taking the disciples aside and telling them what's going to happen when they arrive in Jerusalem. "We're going up to Jerusalem," said Jesus, "and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be delivered over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, and spit on him. They will flog him and kill him. On the third day, he will rise again." Now, he said the same thing way back in chapter 9, and now he reminds the disciples once more. Now, in Matthew, when Jesus says this to the disciples the first time, Peter famously takes Jesus aside and rebukes him. "Never, Lord, this shall never happen to you." And equally famously, Jesus responds to Peter with, "Get behind me, Satan." Now, in Luke, when Jesus tells the disciples this the second time, things go differently. The disciples did not understand any of this, we read. Its meaning was hidden from them. They did not know what he was talking about. That's pretty clear. Luke phrases it three ways. They didn't understand, its meaning was hidden, they didn't know what he was talking about. It isn't until the resurrection that they'll begin to figure it out. Even then, Jesus has to explain all over again what this all meant. Now, don't worry if you don't fully understand what's going on in the Gospels all the time. You're in very good company with the disciples. So they're on their way to Jerusalem, and like today, if you're traveling along the Jordan to Jerusalem, you have to go through or at least past Jericho. It's a contender as one of the world's most ancient cities. Jericho was settled and continually inhabited for over 11,000 years and counting. So it was already very ancient when Jesus stopped by 2,000 years ago. It's an oasis, which is why it existed in the first place. It's famous for its date palm plantations, and it straddles important trade routes. And Herod, of course, had a luxury palace there, but the remains are no longer much to see. As Jesus approached the city, a blind beggar asked what all the excitement was about, and he's told that Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. Now, apparently Jesus' reputation had spread to Jericho because the blind man starts calling out to him, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." People are telling him to be quiet, but he keeps it up. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Now, in calling Jesus this, the blind beggar, I'm sorry we don't have his name, is announcing Jesus as the Messiah. That's what Son of David means, the coming King, the coming Messiah. In the other Gospels, it's the Palm Sunday crowds who call Jesus this, but here an unnamed blind man sets the stage for Jesus' entrance as King. Now, the man saw Jesus for who he was spiritually. Now his sight is restored and he can physically see Jesus face to face. We're told he followed Jesus, praising God, the model for the crowd who does the same. And the great line from Amazing Grace comes to mind, "I once was lost, but now am found. 'Twas blind, but now I see." So Jesus is now passing through Jericho. He's gathering a crowd, and the chief tax collector, Zacchaeus, wants to catch a glimpse of him. Now, Zacchaeus is described as wealthy, all by money he would have amassed by fleecing the populace through overcharging them on their taxes. Now, despite his wealth, he's too short to see over the crowd. Money doesn't buy everything. And no one's about to help the hated swindler who's grown rich by doing the Romans' dirty work. But ever resourceful, he climbs a sycamore tree. Now, I've been to Jericho, and there's a very impressive sycamore tree, which locals will point out to credulous tourists as the actual tree. When I expressed my doubt, my offended guide pointed to the sign, which said, "Sycamore tree which Zacchaeus climbed to see Jesus." So it must be true. And Jesus, however, shocks the crowd. He looks up at the tree, sees Zacchaeus, and he says, "Zacchaeus." How does Jesus know his name? "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. Now, all the people saw this and began to mutter, "He's gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, Here and now I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Well, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Now, once again, people are shocked that Jesus will have anything to do with the despised people of society. But recall in the previous chapter, we just heard a parable about a repentant tax collector whose prayer is heard by God. Now, instead of a parable, we have the real thing. Notice 2 things. First of all, notice 3 things. First of all, Zacchaeus' name is remembered. That's a sign that the name continued to be remembered by the Christian community. Jesus must have stuck with following Jesus. Secondly, Zacchaeus admits to fleecing the flock, committing to pay back all the money he cheated out of the people. The rest, he says, he's going to give to the poor. Again, just a couple of chapters ago, we had the wealthy man who was challenged by Jesus to use his wealth to help the poor and to follow Jesus. And the man, we heard, walked away sad because he was wealthy. Do you remember that? But Zacchaeus, however, as Matthew the tax collector did, embraces the chance to follow Jesus and shows true determination and change of heart by himself taking the initiative and using his wealth for good. Now, perhaps inspired by Zacchaeus' example, Jesus then tells a parable about the wise and unwise use of resources entrusted to us. We heard a version of this parable in Matthew. This time, as Luke records Jesus telling it, Jesus blends it with a hair-raising parable about a man who's appointed the king of a distant land despite local opposition. Upon his coronation, the new king orders the opposition killed in front of him. Dear me. Now, we need a bit of history to figure this out. When Herod was appointed king, the Herod who built the temple, who ordered the Bethlehem babies killed, he himself was not Jewish. He was Idumean. He was appointed as king of the Jews by Rome. Any who opposed his kingship were killed in front of him, as in this parable. So what Jesus is doing is he's using using a well-known bit of history as a lesson. There's a new king coming. There's a new kingdom being established. Those who are wise will get on board and be good stewards of the resources entrusted to them, because it will take time for this king and his kingdom to come to complete realization. We're part of that process. That's why Luke says at the beginning of the parable, while they were listening to this, he went on to tell them a parable because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought that the kingdom of God was going to appear at once. Well, it'll take a bit of time, and we're part of that process, and the usage that we have of the resources entrusted to us are part of bringing that kingdom to realization. That time, I really think we all needed Luke's help to figure this one out. I'm grateful for his introduction. Now, tomorrow, remember the rich man, we had parables that were coming true in this story. Now, this parable begins to come true as Jesus enters Jerusalem as king. We'll finish chapter 19 then. And as you read chapter 19, you might want to check out how the other Gospels record that event in Matthew chapter 21, Mark chapter 11, John chapter 12. When you read all 4 Gospels, you're going to have not a 3D, but a 4D picture of the entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see you tomorrow.